إذا إذا ألقوا فيها سمعوا لها شهيقا وهي تفور تكاد تميز من الغيظ كلما ألقي فيها فوج سألهم خزنتها ألم يأتكم نذير قالوا بلى قد جاءنا نذير فكذبنا وقلنا ما نزل الله من شيء إن أنتم إلا في ضلال كبير وقالوا لو كنا نسمع أو نعقل ما كنا في أصحاب السعير فاعترفوا بذنبهم فسحقا لأصحاب السعير إن الذين يخشون ربهم بالغيب لهم مغفرة وأجر كبير آمنا بالله صدق الله العلي العظيم. الفاتحة مع الصلوات.
Assalamu alaikum, brothers and sisters, again. On behalf of Moulana Dr. Sayyid Nabi Abdi, BOT, BOD, BOA, and on the larger account from our community, I welcome our guest speaker, Moulana Mirza Muhammad Abbas. He is currently a resident alim at Al Zahra Foundation, UK. He's almost there over 3 plus years. He has completed his master's from University of Birmingham, UK, and currently working on his PhD from University Exeter, UK. He is, mashallah, 11 years in Hosea Ilmiya Qum and reciting the majalis throughout the Europe, Middle East, and US in different states and cities. We are very fortunate that we have him over here, and we will be benefiting from his lectures and his speeches for next 4 nights. So please welcome next 3 nights. So please say a loud salawat, and Agha, please.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله أوله بلا أول كان قبله وآخره بلا آخر يكون بعده الذي قصرت عن رؤيته أبصار الناظرين وعجزت عن نعته أوهام الواصفين، ثم الصلاة والسلام على سيدنا ونبينا حبيبنا وطبيب نفوسنا وأشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين وحبيب إله رب العالمين أبي القاسم محمد وعليه الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المظلومين، سيما بقية الله العظم بقية الله خير لكم إن كنتم مؤمنين، ولعنة الدائم على أعدائهم وغاصبي حقوقهم ومنكري فضائلهم أجمعين من علان إلى قيام يوم الدين. أما بعد فقد قال الله تعالى في محكم كتابه المجيد: بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم: ثم قست قلوبكم من بعد ذلك فهي كالحجارة أو أشد قسوة. صدق الله العلي العظيم. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى. Indeed, it's an honor to be once again serve the lovers of Ahl Bayt, particularly in SABA, particularly in the community where I was, where the thought process to enter the Hawza developed. So it was really SABA which provided that ground in which I was blessed to go towards further education, towards Manaviyat, towards Ahl Bayt, towards spirituality. And indeed it's the presence of the brothers who are present here, and their presence today is as important as it was. It was their presence, it was the matam that we used to do standing next to Istafa Bhai and other brothers who really inspired us when we were young. We looked up to them. Alhamdulillah, they are still here. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless them and increase in their tawfiqat. So, alhamdulillah, indeed, it's an honor once again to be here. And I really thank each and every one of you. I've been blessed to be here. For the protection, for the future progress and development of SABA and the Sabaiyans, one loud salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. The verse which I recited is from Surah Baqarah, and apparently this verse, the translation of that would be that your hearts have been hardened. Then your thumma is then. Thumma qasat qulubukum. Qasat qaswa means hard. Qalb is the heart, right? Thumma qasat qulubukum min ba'di dhalik fahiya kal hijara. Just, like a rock. Hijar is like a rock. Your hearts have been hardened like a rock. Aw ashaddu qaswa. No, even worse than that. However, the verse continues. It talks about why it is much more harder than the rock, because even from a rock, water will basically will crack up the rock, so on and so forth. Okay, the reason why I chose this verse is because in the sermons of Fatima Sughra in history is regarded as Hazrat Ruqayya, which is the daughter of Imam Hussein alayhi salam. And these nights are the nights of her. The Awa'il, the beginning of the month of Safar, they say it's Shahadat of Hazrat Ruqayya. Hazrat Ruqayya, which in the Asian subcontinent is known as Sakina. And it is in one of her either speech or in one of her statements that the reason you have treated us the way you have treated us is because your hearts have been hardened, and then she recites this verse, ثُمَّ قَسَتْ قُلُوبُكُمْ. So, as we are in the month of Safar, and we really wanted to know that what really went down, what was the reason why they treated the Ahl Bayt in such a fashion? What were those elements within them that they treated in this fashion? And we could find that the elements have been indicated by the Masumeen alayhi salam, particularly after this incident. For example, if we investigate the sermons of Hazrat Zainab, if we look at the sermon of our fourth Imam, and the sayings such as this statement which comes from Hazrat Ruqayya herself, we could find, or for example, the sermons delivered on the day of Ashura of Imam Hussein alayhi salam himself, that, where I invite you for Sabilur Rashad, where I invite you, for a Sabil, for a path of Rushd, for perfection, but my advices are falling on deaf ears because your bellies have been filled with haram. So, the elements that existed within the enemies of Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam, and it led them to the ultimate and utter darkness to behave in such a fashion, is indicated by the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam themselves. And one of the quality that we find that pointed out to by Hazrat Ruqayya, however, there's a bit of discussion because we'll be doing her Masaib as well. I just wanted to point that out as well in terms of the history. What's her status? What's her maqam? She's been mentioned in history or not, and why she's been known as Sakina. Is Sakina someone else and Ruqayya someone else? In a bit. So in this statement of her, she mentions that it is because your hearts have been hardened. As your hearts are hardened, due to that fact, you have behaved with us in such a fashion. Now, how does a heart becomes hard? What is heart itself within the Islamic understanding? What is there a difference between heart and soul and ruh and aql? These are the things that we really need to look into in order to come to a good and thorough understanding of what is heart first. And then after understanding that, this quality of qaswa, this quality of hardness. Because there's two qualities. One is riqqa. Riqqa means the softness of the heart. And the other is the hardness of the heart. So how does a heart becomes hard? On the basis of Quran and Sunnah. What are those things by which a heart will become hard? So that we avoid them, so that we don't follow the same pattern and same path of the enemies of Ahlul Bayt and treat, when Imam reappears inshallah, or treat the message of Imam Hussein and the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam in that fashion. Recite one salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Few facts, few historical facts, or few historical investigation. It's very difficult to say facts in history because it's so ambiguous. For example, in regards to Hazrat Ruqayya, they say that she was the daughter of Ishaq, who was the wife of Imam Hassan alayhi salam. And it was the wasiyat of Imam Hassan alayhi salam that after I die, you take Ishaq as your wife. And then Hazrat Ruqayya was born, according to one of the historians. Other historians, they write, for example, but no, she was the daughter of Shaharbanu, who was the daughter of the king of Iran. However, in another report, it says that Shaharbanu died 23 years before the waqia of Karbala. So it can't be because she's only 3 years old. And in certain historians, they have not even taken the name of Ruqayya, but they have taken the name of Sakina, they have taken the name of Kulsum and Zainab. Some of the historians, they have mentioned that Imam Hussein alayhi salam had only 4, and they took name of the 4, but he completely skipped taking the name of the 4th. He said he has 4 in the first line, and then when he's given the names, he has only given the 3 names. Fatima Kubra, Fatima Sughra, for example. And the other thing which two factors which made it very confusing. One is that, Imam Hussein always named his daughters as Fatima because of the love that he had, and named all of his sons as Ali. So in some traditions, Imam had 13 sons, and all 13, some way or the other, had the name of Ali. Akbar, Awsat. Traditions, you have 4 daughters, 3 names given. So while looking at all these different facts, we come to the understanding that the statements of Imam Hussein on the day of Ashura, when he is parting farewell, he says, my salutation to you, O Zainab, O Kulsum, O Ruqayya, O Sukaina. He mentions Ruqayya. The other research which is brought forth, which points out to that, no, it was Ruqayya, but because Imam Hussein alayhi salam, she was the apple of the eye of Imam Hussein, she was the coolness of the heart of Imam Hussein, the title of her, Ruqayya, was Sakina actually. So we have different sort of understanding in regards to the wujud, in regards to Hazrat Ruqayya Salamu Alayha, who was 3 years old, or maybe between 3 and 4. But they all agree upon, they unanimously agree upon that Imam Hussein had a daughter who was only 3 years old, and she died in the prison of Sham. Whether her name was Ruqayya, whether her name was Sukaina. That personality existed. Even recently, Ayatollah Gul Paigani, who kind of pushed for the building of the shrine of Hazrat Ruqayya in Sakina. It was really Ayatollah Gul Paigani who kind of, based on the research that he had, and it's wajib really to respect the nisba, the relationship, even if that person who have been buried in the prison of Sham is Sakina or Ruqayya, one have to really pay and respect, because she has nisba, and there is factual evidence that she died, the daughter of Imam Hussain alayhi salam, in Sham. Salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. The other thing that I wanted to mention before really delving into the subject of discussion tonight, which is important particularly for our youth, the historical happenings or facts that have taken place or that have been recorded by the scholars after or during the day of Ashura. For example, first of all, the whole event of Ashura and what unfolded after that, it's a very mystical event. It's a mystery in itself. It is very subtle. It's very latif. I mean, when we pay attention to what happened, because that's why it's been said, La yawmuka yawmuka Aba Abdullah. There is not a day like the day of Imam Hussain alayhi salam. It can't be. What happened in terms of that divine manifestation of the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? What happened on the day in terms of the divine manifestation of the qahariyat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the vengeance of God? It had never happened in history, and it will not happen. Because it's a day on which you have the ultimate darkness in the face of shimmer, and at the same time you have the ultimate light, the maximum capacity that a human that a human could reach in terms of proximity to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is Hussein, and the maximum capacity that a human being could fall, manifesting in shimmer. So such a day, it hasn't been unfolded in history, and it will not unfold. That's why it's been said that that day is a day where there will be no parallel, there's no comparison of that day. So we have to keep that in mind, number one. So this itself makes it the whole event a very mysterious event, a very miraculous event. For example, you have the element of where there's been mentioned that on the eve of Ashura, the Sham-e Ghariban, here's his Hazrat Zainab, and all of a sudden a horseman approaches and he unveils himself. It was Amirul Mu'mineen. Or you have the fact where it's been mentioned that Shimr was about to slaughter Imam Hussain alayhi salam, and there he says, I will slaughter Zainab and the brother and the sister together. But the voice echoes that, oh Shimr, you are blind. This is not Zainab, this is Fatima. So, I mean, these are very mystical explanation, very irfani explanation needed here. And these are fact and these are truth that happen. For example, the reciting of the Quran of the head of Imam Hussain. And Ayatollah Jawadi mentions that the recitation of the Quran from the head of Imam Hussain wasn't that each and every person who was there in the crowd was listening. No. Only few who had the capacity and ability in terms of their heart to listen, such as Ruqayya, such as Zainab, such as Imam Zainul Abidin, they listened, and at the same time, who did? Those who were in utter darkness, like Yazid, like Ibn Ziyad, like these individuals, like Khuli, these individuals who were completely on the opposite pole. Those who were the mediocres, they did not exactly. But those who were on the extreme light, they did as well. And those who are completely utter, and those who were in the complete utter darkness, the reason that they are able to listen to it is because of the compassionate of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because Allah is compassionate. Because of mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they did that. At least now you seek forgiveness. At least now you go towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is nothing but a miracle being shown to you. For example, where Imam Hussein is asking shimmer on the chest of Imam Hussein, saying that I will guarantee shafaat of Rasul, of my grandfather to you. Leave me, spare me, don't kill me. And we know that Imam Hussein gonna die regardless in few hours. Right? So this is for them a token of mercy to really save them, so that they return back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. How much Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave chance to Pharaoh. Oh Musa, when you go to Pharaoh, speak leniently. Be very soft spoken with him. Don't, be sort of in a, angry way or firm. Speak leniently. 9 miracles, tis'ah, were given to Musa. Yad Baida, Asa, the lice and so on, the parting of the Red Sea. 9 miracles to Musa. No other prophet was given 9 miracles. One over and over, trying to save Pharaoh. It is as if Pharaoh is some very important personality, individual that Allah really wants to save him no matter what. And in the end, as a matter of fact, if one wants to look at the spiritual sort of deeper, meaning, Pharaoh died on Iman. Pharaoh brought Iman before he died. So Pharaoh, as a manifestation of the utter darkness, as a human being, that means that every human being who doesn't believe in God, but at the end he would believe in God, he would accept God. Every human being who would die. Maybe he lived all his life as an atheist, but because Pharaoh died, who is the prototype of insaniyat, of the darkness, when Pharaoh died with Iman, then every human being who is a polytheist, who is a non-believer, who is an atheist, will also die with Iman. But dying with Iman, what will happen to them? That's a different story altogether. In Barzakh, so on and so forth. As the Quran clearly says that even, they died with Iman, but still they will be burning in hellfire. Pharaoh and Al Pharaoh. That's a different story. So what I'm trying to point out here is that reciting of the Quran of the head of Imam Hussein and the things that were seen on the day of Ashura, like Bibi Fatima with the caravan, helping and assisting when Hazrat Ruqayya gets lost. The head of Imam Hussein not moving forward when it sees that Ruqayya is not, with the caravan. These things are facts, and this happened because the whole event of Ashura is completely on a different plane. The event of Ashura is so strong that it gave life to the Quran. Things like, for example, in terms of the methodology of the ashab of Imam Hussein, you cannot base the methodology and the way they behaved on the Quran or on the Hadith. They are above that. When Hazrat Ruqayya says, I'm not going to go under the roof, that means she's not going to go under the roof. And that has nothing to do with halal or haram. She's on a different plane altogether. That's love. That is something else. And when she is brought from the place where there was no roof into the roof, she died. That is something else. So therefore, what I'm trying to point out to our youth is that the Waqi Karbala and the things that have been mentioned, which sounds like fairy tales, but it is a fact, but it's a mystery. It has to be explained on a very deeper and irfani level. It has to be understood in that fashion. When the arwah who are strong, such as the Masumeen, usually what's the case is that when a person dies, he dies. He enters that realm, he has nothing to do with this world. He doesn't really, there's no focus of this world. It's like a person who travels from one state to the other. If he has strong relations, he will call once in a blue moon, but he's there, he's busy, right? So imagine a person leaves this dunya, goes into Barzakh, a completely different plane. You know, he has no connection with this world to really, sometimes maybe in a dream or, you know, as there are traditions which says, you know, on the 40th, the ruh will come back to the grave. You know, on the ziyarat, it will come back to the grave. Isa al-Sawab, every year once it will come back to the grave, so on and so forth. You know, there's a very dim attachment of that ruh to this world because it has nothing to do with it. Nothing to do with this world. Unless that ruh is so strong that it is there, but at the same time it has the ability to take people from this world towards the light, to cure, to show His presence in different places. And that's what we see. That's what miracle is. That's what, you know, shifa is. When a person goes, ties himself to the grave of Imam Raza, to the grave of the Masumeen, he is cured by the ruh, by the spirit of that Imam who is in Barzakh. Because his spirit is so strong, it has that ability to pull through a person who is ill, a person who is in darkness. And it makes his presence. I mean, to the extent, I think I remember last time, even Qazi Tabatabai, who was the teacher of Allama Tabatabai, he writes to Allama because he moved to Tabriz and then to Qum, and Qazi still stayed in Najaf, that after I die, you do certain amal, I will come and teach you if you get stuck in any sort of problem in terms of your studies. So that means that the attachment of those who are weak to this world is very dim, but those who are strong is there. And of their presence coming here and manifesting themselves, taking a form in this dunya is possible. So what we see, for example, on a Sham-e Ghariba, it's been mentioned and people sort of, you know, really cry and it's very emotional. It's not a poetry, it's a fact. It happened. Bibi Fatima coming on the day of Ashura, seeing Imam Hussain alayhi salam in that fashion and trying to do something about it, it's a fact, it happened. It's not a fairy tale, or it's not just because, you know, the poet wants people to cry, he's mentioning that. No. It is something that it happened, and it's explainable on the basis of philosophy and mysticism. Salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Now, you know, let's do a bit of what we have wanted to discuss in regards to tonight and the future nights as well. We said that this quality of heart becoming hard. First of all, what is heart? You know, from an Islamic, on the basis of the Quran and Sunnah, on the basis of Quran and Hadith. You know, what is the place of heart? Jaigai qalb. You know, what is the place of the heart? So now, when we pay attention to the verses of the Quran or the traditions, we find that heart has a very special place. Sometimes the same term as heart is used for the soul as well, you know, because it says that Allah will not look at you, but Allah will look at your qalb. Or on the day of judgment, Allah will judge you in accordance to your heart. So that means that heart is the main sort of element, is the most important thing for a person. You know, heart is the book. As the hadith mentions that, you know, heart is considered as the book upon which things are written down, or upon which things are, for example, imprinted. For this hadith from Amirul Mu'minin, it says, Al-qalb mushaful basar. So it is really heart in which things are deposited. All of the other things are nothing but tools. If I am seeing something, it goes and sits in my heart. Seeing, for example, could be ibadat and could be haram as well. You know, to the extent you have hadith, as we are talking about, you know, hardening of the heart. There's a hadith which says that do not look at a person who is bakhil, because it will make your heart harder. A person who is stingy, do not look at him, meaning, or do not be in his company. It says, look, the hadith says clearly, do not look at him. Even looking at such a person who is bakhil, it will harden your heart. So it's looking, but where is it going? It is going and sitting in your heart. It's hearing, but where is it going? It is going and sitting in your heart. So eyes, tongue, ears, and aql, which we think that, oh, aql is the most important thing. Aql is nothing but a tool. And when we are sort of calculating, learning and understanding, it is depositing in this mushaf, in this book, which is the heart. And this is the book which will be weighed. This is the book on which things Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will judge us. So it boils down to that heart is the most important truth, phenomena or reality of us, of insan. That's why you see, for example, a person, he does something wrong, there will be a spot on his heart, in the traditions. We heard many a time. But on the other hand, it is not this heart as in this gusht, as this sort of morze, this thing here, as the meat that we have. Nevertheless, everything is related. What do I mean by that? Related is that Islam pays attention to the zahir, to the outward form, and to the inward form as well. There's a relationship, and a great relationship, which really requires a great deal of contemplation, which really requires the opening of our heart towards these ma'arif, towards this hikmah, towards this knowledge. Because heart, as a physical heart, when we look at the traditions which says that, why the heart have been named heart, the Prophet says, Muhammad Mustafa sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, إِنَّمَا سُمِّيَ الْقَلْبُ مِنْ تَقَلُّبِهِ, because it kind of swift and turns. The reason why heart have been named as heart, qalb, because it's Arabic, taqallub, because it kind of, changes, it turns, it's swift. That's why it's been named as heart. Now the Prophet is pointing out to that medical fact at that time. It's something to pay attention to. But look at this. He continues and he says that he compares to it, mathalahu, the example of that is like a feather hanging on a tree, on a twig, and the wind is blowing, and how the feather twists and turns. That's how, heart is. How beautifully the Prophet is explaining the function of the heart and how it is at that time. How that, if you can imagine it, like a feather when you are seeing the wind is blowing and how it kind of turns this way and that way. And especially here, there's a lot of Native Americans, they have these, sort of different figures, they put it on the tree and stuff, and how this kind of chimes, they call it as well, how it turns and, how Prophet is explaining, that's what he's pointing out to the medical fact. Now look at this. Based on that very medical fact, here Prophet says that fil insan mudgha. Mudgha is like a lump, like a flesh, right? إذا هي سلمت وصحت سلم بها سائر الجسد. In man, there's a gusht, there's a sort of like a lump, like a meat. If that is salim, if that is good, if the heart is good, then his jasad is good. Then his body is good. It's all to do with the heart. A person could be brain dead, but if his heart is functioning, he will be alive. And it's a medical fact that every antibiotic that you want to cure in your knee, in your feet, in your hand, it pumps by your heart. Heart is the most important element or the most important organ of a human being. And from there, the antibiotics are pumped wherever it is. So on the spiritual level, heart is the most important thing, how the zahir and batin are connected. And on that physical plane, how heart is most important thing. It really requires that one really have to focus to the outward, to the zahir, and eventually he will come to the deeper understanding of each and everything that is around him, that is within him. That's what God says, right? We'll show them our signs within themselves and outside on the horizon, unless, it is proven to them that haqq, that it is truth. One will come to the understanding. But however, we see research and books written on the philosophy of mind and philosophy of heart. And this requires, it's like 2 + 2, 2. A simple thing. In few hadiths, the whole issue of philosophy of mind is resolved here. Is it really mind you're thinking? Is it really your heart? what is it? Is it really your soul? I mean, it's unnecessary confusion being created by the Orientalists. There's no need for that. When we pay attention to the traditions, we find that, okay, heart, is that your book? Is your soul? And all of the other things are nothing but tools upon which things are imprinted, things are deposited. So if with my eye, if I see a person who is bakhil, my heart is becoming harder. But with my eye, if I see who is a mu'min, my heart will become riqqa. It will, looking at a mu'min is ibadat. Looking at a Kaaba is ibadat. All of these things is just looking, but where does it depositing? It is depositing in my heart. So it becomes that heart, the qalb, becomes the most important reality of insan, of a human being, that he has to protect it. And it becomes, as when we pay attention to the traditions, helping with the salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. It becomes a place where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala descends. It becomes the zarf of Allah. A heart becomes the zarf of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I mean, is it not, when we look at the verses of the Quran, it says, the Quran have been revealed upon the qalb of the Prophet. It is the heart of the Prophet the Quran was revealed, right? So, it is becoming that container on which the Quran descends. And as a matter of fact, you would have hadith as well. A person who recites Quran, wahi descends upon his heart when he is reciting. Except that he is not Nabi Mursal. Except that he is not a Nabi like how Prophet was the Nabi. But it is exactly like how the Quran have descended upon the heart of the Prophet. When I am reciting Quran, it is like that. So I am making myself mahroom by having Quran and not reciting it. Yes, you're right. It is not on that level. Obviously, there are darajat. Al-izzatu lillahi wa li-rasuli wa lil-mu'mineen. There's honor for Allah, there's honor for Rasul, and there's honor for mu'mineen. When I honor a mu'min, obviously I'm honoring Rasul and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala at the end of the day. Right? So when I'm saying, or when the hadith is saying that when a person recites Quran, it is as if the, wahi is coming to his heart, not on that level of the Prophet, but it begins there. I have to start somewhere. And it will reach us to a point that even without reciting, I will have the manifestations of the asma of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, of the verses of the Quran upon my heart. I might not be reciting, but my heart will open up to these things. Things will start to speak as how it did to the Prophet. So it says that, the heart really becomes the place upon which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala descends. And what type of heart? I'll just recite one hadith here, and then I will continue inshallah. A heart where in this hadith has been mentioned by the Prophet that inna lillahi ta'ala fil ard avaniyal ala wa hiya qulub fa ahabbuha ila Allah arqawha wa asfaha wa aslabuha wa arqawha lil ikhwan wa asfaha min adh-dhunub wa aslabuha fi dhatillah. He says that the heart which becomes the place of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala are of three types, which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala love. Number one is the one which is soft, riqqa. And the most arqawaha, the most softest of the heart, it has two qualities in this hadith. One is very hard, it says, in one hadith, the heart which becomes the zarf, which becomes the place for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to descend, is very soft and at the same time very hard as well. The one which is very soft is the heart of a person who is soft towards the brothers, who is nice towards the brothers. A heart which is nice towards the brothers is the heart in which Allah descends. Number one. Number two, pure hearts. A heart which is pure from the sins of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the heart in which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala descends. And number three, a heart which is hard in the path, in the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, is the heart in which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala descends. So it's one heart, it has these three qualities to it. It is soft, and at the same time it is hard. And as a matter of fact, when we read the verses that we wanted to descend the Quran upon the mountain, but it had no capacity and it will be shattered into pieces. But the heart of insan had that capacity. So you have that physical element, because heart is considered to be the substance of the heart. Physically, medically speaking, it's very, very strong. The muscle. Imagine, it's continuously, swifting and changing. It's like a person who does 100 push-ups every day, how strong he will become. It's continuously pumping. It's continuously, those muscles becomes the most strongest. And perhaps that's why, when you cook, the heart is like very hard. It's very difficult to chew because the muscles have become very strong. Right? So, there is a relationship with the zahir and batin. That is a given fact. If one kind of really pays attention and close attention to all of these zawahir, one will come to the batin of those things, the reality of those things, what is existing. It will speak to you. It will speak out. It will show itself. It will manifest itself. But it really requires that contemplation, which once again, comes about with, the heart, with purification, so on and so forth. Okay. Salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Now, as we said that, we really wanted to look at the hardness, how a heart could become hard. There are many, traditions and verses of the Quran which we'll look at, inshallah, maybe tomorrow night and the night after. But one of them, because we don't want to leave tonight without taking something from tonight's discussion, which we mentioned already, one little one, looking at a person who is stingy, makes the heart hard. There's something about it. Why a mu'min? Why a stingy person? Because a mu'min manifest, shows the beauty of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala within him. The asma, the names of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, is the color of Allah, as is sibghat Allah, min ahsan Allah min as-sibgha, is the color of Allah is seen in a mu'min. So when you look at the color of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that is ibadat. That kind of elevates you. But a person who is a stingy person, he manifests the forces of darkness, so to speak, to make it very simple here. He is not manifesting the kamal, the perfection. So when he is not manifesting the perfection, the limitations, obviously that brings about a change, because this is depositing in our heart. It's a process. It's a learning process that is taking place. Anyway, so that's one thing that we mentioned, that the hardness of a person who is stingy sort of becomes. The other thing that we find is jahal, a person who is ignorant. As the Quran clearly says, that a person who is ignorant, his heart will become hard. I have the reference of it, from the Quran, which points out to that a heart which are ignorant, those hearts become hard. For example, if you look at the historical fact, what did Muawiyah said? He said, in my battalion, in my army, there are soldiers who cannot differentiate between a she camel and a he camel. Are they supporters of haqq or are they supporters of batil? Do they have mercy in their heart towards the truth? Because the criteria is the truth. The criteria of a soft heart, the criteria of a heart which is soft, meaning that it has the ability to grasp and understand the hidayat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that's a soft heart. To recognize the nur, what we see completely opposite in the plain of Ashura, right? And your hearts have become hardened, that's why you behaved to us in this fashion, Hazrat Ruqayya, right? So, a person who is ignorant, a person who is jahil, that's what it happens. It makes the heart of that person very hard. It perhaps look at its own benefit. And the history is full of examples. even today, if you look at it, and for example, in the time of Musa and so on and so forth, that those people who were ignorant, they were the ones who behaves in the fashion, or their hearts become hard and they behave in such a fashion. What today, for example, Taliban and all of these people, and what's happening in Syria, for example, oh, Allahu Akbar, throwing from a 10-story building. Is this Allahu Akbar? Is this, decapitating, putting the tapes on the YouTube, this is really Allahu Akbar. This is nothing but pointing out to that how ignorant they are. And as a matter of fact, the worst enemy of man is really his own ignorance. That's his worst enemy. So one of the things that we see, and why we can relate this to what Imam Hussein was saying. I'm the son of Fatima, I'm the son of the Prophet. I mean, so many times, why does it really require of Imam Hussein to continuously mention that? This means that he's educating them. Who am I? Who are you really fighting? And those hearts which has that ability to really grasp and understand, they were attracted and they moved in that direction. Like for example, Hazrat Hur. When Imam Hussein said, "Oh Hur, may your mother cry on you." But Hur replied that, "I cannot say the same thing. I know who your mother is." Look, that heart was knowledgeable of the fact. So therefore, that was attracted towards guidance, towards Nur, and he came towards it. So the worst enemy of man is his ignorance. So we gotta basically work towards it. Get rid of our ignorance, of our jahalat. Educate ourselves in all way possible in regards to, every little affair and every little thing, and how the Masumeen paid attention to in regards to knowledge, in regards to understanding, in regards to ma'arif. For example, you have the hadith from the 7th Imam. As a matter of fact, today or tomorrow is the birth of the 7th Imam. Alhamdulillah, this thing came up. I wanted to mention earlier as well, that how he planted his representative in the Darul Khilafa, like Ali ibn Yakhtin, for example. How knowledgeably he did. And how he was educating others while portraying himself, while doing taqiyya. Or for example, you have that incident of another Imam or 7th Imam himself, that when one of his companions rents camel to Mamun or Harun for Hajj. It's a companion of the Imam and he's renting it as a business. Then Imams, did ishkal. Imam criticized his act. What you're doing wasn't right. It wasn't in our support. You are expecting that he should come back alive and return your camel and give money to you. So even you are supporting that. So one have to be very careful in every one step that one takes. Whether this step that I'm taking, maybe outwardly speaking, it looks like a normal sort of everyday act of mine, or not even that, it could look like an act ibadi. It could be looked as a worship that I'm doing. But if one educate and really see that is this really an act of ibadat that I'm carrying out, this act of ibadat is gonna help the cause of Ahl Bayt alayhim salam or what? I mean, there are examples, ila mashallah, obviously, you have heard from this extreme of, self-flagellation to that extreme, for instance, and others, for example. So therefore, even an act ibadi, is this act of my ibadat, am I carrying it out on the basis of my ignorance, that this act will not really help the cause of Ahl Bayt alayhim salam? One really have to see that, calculate that. And that is why you have these darajat in the ashab, in the companions. That's the reason you have these darajat. Some of them are on the 10th level, some on the 9th level, so on and so forth. So, first thing we mentioned is that it was very simple, looking at a stingy person, which kind of points out to that a person shouldn't be, obviously. Looking at it is that, imagine if I am like that, Then you have the element of ignorance. When a person is ignorant of the fact, what happened with the, Samiri? When Musa went, the man, What happened? People of Musa, really, it's really amazing fact that he is seeing after, all the miracles. Musa brought them the other side of the river Nile, and they are going towards the promised land to fight the Immaculates. And now when they are passing through Surah Araf, when they are passing through the village, they saw the people in village, presenting food to the idol and worshipping the idol. They come to Musa and they say, Musa, why don't you make a god for us and we want? 10 years in the city of Hebrew, he was preaching about Tawheed. He showed 9 miracles to them. After that, they pass the Red Sea and they are on the other side, going towards Jerusalem, and they see as they were passing, it was 600,000 as the Bible reports. There were 600,000 Jews with the Musa alayhi salam. Obviously, it really required a great deal of PR. Musa sent his emissaries, that we want to pass through the city and so on and so forth, right? And then they see they are doing that. They say, oh Musa, make us a god that we want to worship this way. Even after that, you find, in terms of their jahalat, ignorance, this verse which I recited, now let's, end by the same verse, your hearts have become qasawat qalb in Surah Baqarah. This came at a time when they came to figure out who is the murderer. The killing, you should kill the yellow calf, and then you should take the blood and put it on the dead body. The dead body will come back to life and will point out to who is the murderer, because there was 2 clans were fighting that you kill and you kill, right? But what I want to point out here is that when Musa alayhi salam, after all of that, there was dispute. They came to Musa and they said that Musa, resolve this dispute. We are fighting. What to do now? Musa said, okay, go and slaughter a calf and put the blood of that calf on the dead body. It will tell. He said, Musa, what are you saying? You're kidding? You think that we are a child? The way they treated Musa alayhi salam. And then Musa said that this is the hukum, this is the order of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You got to do that. Finally, they retreat. They retreated. And then they said, okay, we'll do that. So, the jahalat, even a person will see the truth, will see the haqa'iq, but if he wants to shut himself down, doesn't want to educate himself, he will remain ignorant. And that's what makes the heart harder. This is what it pointed out to. They are seeing the miracles, one after the other, but still they treated Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam in that fashion. What it really takes, if you look at that, a 3-year-old daughter of Imam Hussain alayhi salam, Hazrat Ruqayya. And in terms of as we said, by giving the reference of Aisha Wadi, in terms of the maniviyat, in terms of the spiritual capacity of her, she's on that level. We could clearly understand the exchange of dialogue that takes place after the tents were burned and she came out. And then this Arab person who was the reporter, journalist, who moved forward to help, and he says, stop right there, this really points out to that little girl, but she's on that level in terms of manaviyat. No wonder she was the most favorite or the most, sort of apple of the eye for Imam Hussain alayhi salam. Imam Hussain loved her so much. Allama Majlisi mentions this. Ayatollah Ishtahardi brought this reference of Allama Majlisi, that, he saw in the courtyard of Imam Hussain alayhi salam, there's a majlis, and on the mimbar there's Allama Majlisi reciting. And someone from the rooms that are around the courtyard, usually where there are graves buried there, somebody came from there, a lady approached, and she said that, oh Allama, recite the greatest musibat of Imam Hussain alayhi salam. Then Allama inquires that what was the greatest musibat? Then she said it was the parting of the farewell of Hussain from Ruqayya, from the daughter of Imam Hussain. It wasn't easy for Imam Hussain. That when Imam Hussain is about to leave, some report says that she hugged the feet of the horse and wasn't allowing. Some reports say that she pulled the cloak of Imam Hussain And Imam Hussein embraces her. She asked that, where will I find the chest of you, O father? Because she used to sleep on the chest of Hussein. I mean, the report where Sham-e Ghariban on the eve of Ashura, she runs towards the Maqtal. She asks, O father, where are you? The raising of the body, raising of the hands of Imam Hussein. Ilayya, come, my daughter, come towards me. This is your father. And these are, once again, I say these are facts. When Fatima was shrouded, and Imam Ali alayhi salam tells Hussein, why don't you part farewell to your mother? What did Imam Hussein say? Unless my mother calls me, I will not come. The shroud was open, the hands were raised of Fatima. Wallah, Amirul Mu'minin says, Wallah. These are facts. The attachment and the love of Ahlul Bayt to each other, it was something that was ordained by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala himself to love Ahlul Bayt, and they are Ahlul Bayt themselves, so obviously there will be love of each other. And the raising of the hand which have no head, that's what she reports, right? Hazrat Zainab asked that, how did you find the body of your father? She says, I called my father and I saw a body which had no head, raised his hands and he called me. And then how she was persecuted, how she was thrown left and right. And the other incident reported as the caravan, as the horses were not moving forward. And they wanted to go quickly to Sham. And they asked that, why is the horses not moving? Why is the caravan not moving forward? They said, ask Imam Sajjad. And they asked, is Ruqayya in the caravan? Because Imam Hussein recommended to Hazrat Zainab that take good care of Ruqayya. She wasn't there. And then Hazrat Zainab went looking, and finally she finds Ruqayya. But she finds Ruqayya in what state? She finds Ruqayya with a lady. And then Hazrat Zainab, there's an exchange of dialogue which have been recorded, which says that she says that this is not Medina. I wish if this was Medina, I have returned the favor what you have done. Then this lady raised the veil that she was wearing. She says, oh Zainab, look, this is Zahra. Then Hazrat Zainab inquires Ruqayya that what happened. And she says, when my father was leaving, and he said, Hussein said, that when you are in trouble, do the zikr of Ya Zahra, Ya Zahra. And oh Ammejan, oh my aunt, I did the zikr of Ya Zahra, and I was helped and assisted. And then that hour comes that she's the little girl, she's the father in the dream. And she cries. Everybody is trying to console her. Nothing is helping her. And eventually, Yazid orders that the head of Hussein be taken. It wasn't easy for that 3-year-old. She was, as it reports, that in the beginning she was in a state of shock to really hold the head of the father and embrace it. And then she cleans the blood of Hussein. And finally it reports, there's a poetry of her. The first thing that she asked, oh Father, who have made your beard red in blood? Oh Father, did they give you water before they slaughtered you? And then after that she reads her mercy. Oh Father, after you were gone, our tents were burnt. After you were gone, our chadars were pulled. After you were gone, our earrings were snatched. After you were gone, we were slapped left and right. We were thrown on the ground. And even you have that incident where it says that after you were gone, I was in the castle of Yazid, and a man approached. And he said, what did he ask for? He said, what a nice girl, I want to buy this as a slave. And here Zainab says, oh Sajjad, take care of Ruqayya. And finally, while she was speaking to the father, she goes quiet. And here Zainab says, Sajjad, look at Ruqayya, look at Sakina. And when Sakina, and Imam Sajjad alayhi salam shakes the shoulder of Sakina and says that she is no longer inna lillah wa inna ilayhi raji'un. And a grave was dug open in that very dark prison. And she was buried there. But the most heart-rending part is when Rabab is leaving this Zindan of Sham, this prison of Sham.
ala lanatullah ala qawm al-zalimin sayalamu alladhina zalamu ayya munqalibin yanqalibun بفاطمة وأبيها وبالها وبنيها وسر المستودع فيها فأجبنا يا الله 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 يا رحمن يا رحيم يا مقلب القلوب ثبت قلوبنا على دينك يا قاضي الحاجات يا كافي المحمات إنك على كل شيء قدير يا الله بحق محمد وآل محمد. Forgive all of our sins and the sins of our marhumin and make them special guests of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein alayhi salam. Ya Allah, بحق Muhammad wa ali Muhammad, provide us, give us tawfiq to do the ziyarat of Imam Hussein on the day of Arba'in, and give us the shafaat of Imam Hussein alayhi salam in the hereafter. Ya Allah, بحق Muhammad wa ali Muhammad, protect the life, honor, dignity of all of the Shi'ayan of Amirul Mu'mineen, no matter where they live in this world. Ya Allah, بحق Muhammad wa ali Muhammad, protect the religious institution, particularly the seminary of Najaf and Qum. Ya Allah, بحق Muhammad wa ali Muhammad, give Shifa Kamil to all those who have requested us for prayers. Ya Allah, بحق Muhammad wa ali Muhammad, he is the zuhur of our 12th Imam. Include us as the faithful companions of the 12th Imam. Protect the life, honor, and give tawfiq to Ayatollah Sistani and Ayatollah Khamenei. Ya Allah, بحق Muhammad wa ali Muhammad, protect our young ones and our elderly ones. Please recite Surah Fatiha, particularly for the 40th of the brother and also for all of the marhumin, particularly the marhumin of the brothers and sisters who are present here. Matame Hussein. Bismillah. Ya Hussein. Ya Hussein. Ya Hussein. Ya Hussein. Ya Hussein.